tonight on KTN Sunday Night, and happy Mother's Day to all who are celebrating. Well, tonight the machinery of government seems to have finally gained momentum, albeit a little too late for the families of at least 8 people who were killed in the Mandera clashes. And now militiamen have been given a 3-day ultimatum by the government to voluntarily surrender their arms or face forceful disarmament. John Allen Namu is back from Mandera. He spent a week there. He'll be bringing us the backstory to a conflict that began 3 months ago and that many Kenyans only heard about 3 days ago. Well, the warning from the police to deal decisively with the militiamen comes amid another call by the United Nations to the government to respect human rights as it goes about securing parts of the country that are volatile. Tonight we are asking, is the intelligence community sleeping on the job? We've got this and much more lined up for you tonight on KTN Sunday Night, including our weekly political segment, Checkpoints. My guests are already in studio. We'll be coming up to that in a short while. Let's take a look at our top stories tonight.
An ultimatum that all those people who are illegally armed or they are illegally in possession of illicit small arms and light weapons, they should within the next 3 days be able to return or surrender to the capital.
Top security chiefs move to contain spiraling inter-ethnic conflict in Mandera. Government on the spot over repeat attacks in violence-prone areas. Vetting process, why Parliamentary Committee on Appointments is being questioned. Gore skin leopards as opposing fans square it out in the terraces. Welcome to KTN Sunday Night. I am Ann Kiguta. Inspector General of Police David Kimayo has now given the residents of Mandera 3 days to voluntarily surrender their arms to the government. This 3-day grace period now comes before the military moves in to forcefully disarm area residents and enforce the peace. Kimayo was in Mandera today where he met members of the warring Dagodia and Gari clans and asked them to keep the peace. He said sending in the military was the last resort, and the recent upsurge in fighting has left the government no choice.
We have actually been informed that quite a number of the communities have harmed themselves, both communities living here, with illicit small arms and light weapons, and they have some semblance of malicious group that they are protecting the 2 of the clans, each of the 2 clans, and therefore we have given an ultimatum that all those people who are illegally armed or they are illegally in possession of illicit small arms and light weapons, they should within the next 3 days be able to return or surrender to the capital.
Well, reports of the violence in Mandera County are coming at a time when the country is reeling from similar reports of wanton killings in different parts of the country. However, with Bungoma, Tana River or Garissa, those reports reached the public shortly after the violence actually emerged. But the reports from Mandera were 3 months in coming. Much of the destruction in Ramu happened during the electoral period and went unreported, and it wasn't just the bigger towns in the expansive county that saw that violence. Well, KTN's John Allen Namu is just back from Mandera and brings us their story.
It has all the hallmarks of a war zone. Ramu town, west of Mandera town, has literally crumbled. The walls that still stand tell of the hundreds of bullets that ricocheted off of them. The news of violent confrontation between 2 militia groups only reaching the rest of the country a few days ago. But it was actually the end of a lull in the violence that began 3 months ago. And every day, the number of those dead and those injured rises. This middle-aged cattle herder was brought into the Ramu district hospital last week. He had been shot while crossing into Ramu from Ethiopia by militiamen who he claimed were already on the Kenyan side of the border. Peace has been an elusive trophy for the people of all communities here. Today, leaders from the Gare and Dagodia communities who had met with Deputy President William Ruto visited Ramu to preach peace. But in one visit last week, County Commissioner Michael Tialal expressed his frustration that some leaders may be speaking with forked tongues.
Tumekaa na viongozi, tunazungumza, tunakubaliana. Kesho tunaenda kuanza tena square one.
Later, in an exclusive interview with KTN, Tialal said what leaders here are reluctant to admit, that the conflict has its roots in politics.
The two clans were competing. Both clans actually displaced one another from that constituency. In areas where the Dogodia were the majority, they made sure that the Gare were displaced. In areas where the Gare were many, they also ensured that the Dogodia left that area.
In estimating the scale of the conflict, Ramu town proves to be a sad and overwhelming barometer. But this conflict happened and continues to happen in towns far out of the glare of the camera and at times beyond the reach of the law. This is Malkaroka, a small village on the Kenya-Ethiopia border. It may be small, but that only makes the impact of the inter-clan conflict here easier to see. Houses that were burnt at election time barely stand, their occupants long gone. Saturday, Deputy President William Ruto made his estimation of the number of displaced.
About 1,500 are camped in various police stations.
Both sides claim that the number could be higher. Efforts to stop the fighting in Ramu may pay dividends there, but as long as villages like these remain cut off from the rest of the county, then the road to a final resolution of this conflict may be a long one. John Alanamu, KTN, Mandera County.
Well, the violence that is taking place there is certainly worrying, but it is, as we have mentioned, a conflict that went on for 3 months unreported. You need to take a look at what we're about to show you. This is KTN's in-depth current affairs show, Brand New Perspective, hosted by John Alanamu. Here's a sneak peek of what's coming up this week. Do we have that video clip? Let's move on. We'll bring it to you a little later, as soon as we can. Remember, that show will be airing this Wednesday. And the Coalition for Reforms and Democracy has criticized the government for what it has termed as laxity in dealing with the violence that has been taking place in parts of the country, where at least 11 people have been killed and more than 150 others critically injured. CORD leaders today toured Busia and Bungoma and criticized the government over its response to the violence. KTN's Betty Kialo now reports.
Speaking at Busia Catholic Church, where the CORD leaders joined faithful in praying for the departed victims of the recent attacks in Busia and Bungoma counties, CORD party leader Raila Odinga blamed the government for not doing enough to protect its citizens against unlawful gangs.
Yale ambayo yamefanyika ni ya unyama. Nilizungumza na katibu mkuu wa Umoja wa Mataifa. Akaniambia vile Wetangula ametangaza hapa ati kule katika kikao ya usalama ya Umoja wa Mataifa Security Council walisema yale yamefanyika hapa ni crimes against humanity.
Wananchi wana haki ya kutarajia usalama kutoka kwa serikali. Na pale serikali inaanza kudidimia na kushindwa, wananchi pia wana haki ya kujitetea.
The visit comes 2 days after Deputy President William Ruto toured Bungoma County, assuring Kenyans that the government was investigating the attacks. Ruto also ordered for the deployment of 100 more police officers to the region to ensure a rapid response.
Government, of course, is concerned about what is going on in Bungoma, and we have agreed on a comprehensive plan on how to rein in the runaway insecurity in these two counties.
So far, 11 people have died, while more than 150 others have been critically injured following the attacks. The government is now being accused of not being proactive in taming insecurity in violence-prone areas of the country.
Those who have committed atrocities of crime here and there, using the necessary security intelligence that we have, then definitely we are going to narrow down to arrest those criminals that have committed offenses, and soon they will be arraigned before court.
Tuna polisi ambayo wana jukumu ya kulinda wananchi. Polisi mpaka wafanye kazi yao.
With pressure mounting on the government to tackle insecurity in the country with vigor, residents living in the affected areas say investigations are not enough. They need practical solutions that will keep them safe now. For KTN, I'm Betty Kialo.
Still on insecurity, Baringo County Senator Gideon Moi has called on the government to also move in and deal with insecurity cases in Baringo County. Moi said the government should intervene in all areas of the country that have recently faced rising cases of insecurity as fast as they did deploy police officers to Bungoma and Mandera. While he said residents of Baringo have experienced a series of cattle rustling incidents and attacks by raiders with little government intervention. Moi was speaking at a Thanksgiving event in Mogotio.
Lakini tungependa serikali hata hawa pia wachukue kwa makini yale ambayo inafanyika hapa kwa Baringo. Wamekimbisha haraka mambo Garissa na Bungoma, lakini inaonekana wamesahau mambo hapa kwa Baringo. So tungependa serikali itoe amri kali ambayo ile amri walitoa huko Bungoma.
And we'll be talking about security later in this bulletin on checkpoints. Let's move on to other news now. And the Parliamentary Committee on Appointments has begun working on its recommendations for each of the 16 Cabinet Secretary nominees. The committee, which concluded the vetting of the nominees last evening, is holding a retreat at the Windsor Hotel to prepare a report that will be tabled before the National Assembly. But even as the committee evaluates the nominees, some critics have dismissed the vetting exercise as a mere formality which failed to address pertinent issues or raise the hard questions.
From the era of roadside declarations and appointments by previous regimes, the dawn of a new constitution redefined the mode of appointments into public office.
And so I ask you one question, very specific question. Are you gay, Dr. Mutunga?
I'm not gay.
From the vetting of judges by the Judges and Magistrates Vetting Board to the second search for the Deputy Chief Justice by the Judicial Service Commission, the process of appointments into public office has been given a whole new meaning.
Every time we talk about the Conservatives at Treasury, your name keeps coming up.
I am a reformer in government. You can see it for yourself.
And the committee came back to Parliament and they also exonerated me of any wrongdoing.
But critics are not giving a thumbs up to the just concluded vetting of Cabinet Secretary nominees by the Parliamentary Committee on Appointments.
What we saw were basically conversations between the nominees and the committee that is in charge of vetting.
The National Civil Society Congress says the vetting was a mere formality which failed to address pertinent issues even when questions had been raised through sworn affidavits.
The nominees were let off in a very easy manner. Some of the complaints that members of the public brought to the fore were really not very well looked at.
With just 3 days to vet 16 nominees, the nominees had 1.5 hours each before the Appointments Committee, with some nominees like Charity Ngilu being questioned for 2 hours.
We need to strengthen the vetting process itself. We need to look at the law afresh and say, how do we apply this law as a tool? Otherwise, we'll continue to have basically a sham.
Amid the criticism, the Committee on Appointments is now working on its report. The 28-member committee retreated to the Windsor Hotel to work on the report, which is expected to be tabled before Parliament on Tuesday. The committee says it knows exactly what it is looking for and will use benchmarks provided for under the law.
So we have to look at issues to do with the integrity of the person and see whether there is any material that has come out or that members may have against each individual nominee. After that, we will sift it through against the requirements of the law.
President Uhuru Kenyatta is yet to name cabinet secretary nominees to the Interior and Coordination of National Government and Labor, Social Security and Services dockets. Rita Tinina, KTN.
Let's delve into politics. And former Vice President Kalonzo Musyoka has broken his silence on the pressure to have him back in Parliament to lead the minority, saying that he's not interested. Kalonzo said the debate had generated a lot of unnecessary political heat in the country, and he is seeking to end the speculation. While speaking in Machakos today, the former Vice President said he would instead lead the opposition from outside Parliament to strengthen it ahead of the 2017 general election.
Let it be clear so that I can guide these people. I will be there. My title is the party leader. That's the one I want to really follow through. And follow through so that we can deliver this country together as a united nation. We will respect all the friends who have now won respective places. I'll stand with them. But I'll also be able to tell them because they're younger than me.
The Kenya National Human Rights Commission has warned Mau Mau veterans not to register with Tandem Law, a British law firm that is purporting to be spearheading negotiations for the veterans' compensation from the British government. The Mau Mau War Veterans Association sued the British government for torture and injustices meted out on freedom fighters during the struggle for independence.
No
amount of money will repair the damage metal shackles have done to 81-year-old Njau Githinji's legs, or erase the traumatic memories of the struggle for independence more than 50 years ago.
Wakati wanapopewa chakula, mzungu anaingia huko. Alikuwa anaitwa Mafiga. Kazi yake ilikuwa ni kupiga tu. Chakula yote na mwago mnachapwa saa moja. Akisema ni saa moja, hata wakipa watu 10 hata 20 mpaka saa ishe.
His friend and neighbor, 78-year-old Grace Nyambura, was also detained in the 1950s for aiding Mau Mau fighters.
Kwa tunalalia mkeka hapa chini ile ya kushunwa na nini na ile manyasi. Haya, tulikuwa na kitu ingine do ikatopolewa hapa chini. Ikawekwa kwa pale kwa kona. Tukaambiwa mtu akishikwa na choo hapo. Kuna wakati mmoja nilikuwa mkeka yangu ilikuwa hapa karibu na mlango. Sasa nikaona sasa hii ndoo inajaa. Sasa hii ni tabu gani? Nikasema sasa nitatoka nje. Nikafungua mlango. Wewe Mungu iko. Wakati huo ningeakufa haki.
These are just two of the hundreds of Mau Mau veterans alive today, part of the Mau Mau War Veteran Association. And though it has been half a century since their ordeal, these veterans may finally see justice after the British government agreed to an out-of-court settlement.
Because it does illustrate that even very painful injustices can be resolved through a process that respects the rule of law and also respects human rights.
The three Mau Mau veterans who have spearheaded the case are Wambugu Wanyingi, Jane Mavoni and Paulo Nzili. But now that there is certainty that the British government will compensate the veterans for injustices inflicted during the colonial period, there are those who want to reap where they did not sow.
The court case in London, which has been ongoing since 2009, and the settlement negotiations have nothing to do with Tandem Law, Griffin Legal or any other law firm or other organization apart from the KHRC, the Mau Mau War Veterans Association and LEADE.
Tandem Law is a British law firm based in London, and since the case began, those involved in the Mau Mau case say that they have never offered any sort of assistance. But now it seems that they want to register the Mau Mau War Veterans in preparation for the compensation.
The Mau Mau
Bar Association has a membership of more than 2,000 veterans scattered across the country, a number of who are vulnerable to manipulation by those who are seeking to benefit from their long struggle for justice. The Kenya Human Rights Commission and others involved in the case say they will not let this happen. Catherine Omwando, KTN.
Now to an update on a story that has got the country talking, and police are pursuing a Kenyan woman who is said to be an accomplice to a foreigner who was arrested with 11 women shooting pornographic movies in Mombasa. Kisiauni DCIO Shadrach Juma says that the woman was working hand in hand with that foreigner for the last few months. KTN's Angel Katusia reports on this latest development on the controversial incident.
The 12 people, among them 11 Kenyan women and a foreigner who were arrested allegedly shooting a pornographic movie with a dog in a posh house in Mombasa's Nali area, await the court's process. Police are pursuing a Kenyan woman who is said to be an accomplice to the man. Kisauni DCIO Shadrach Juma says the woman, believed to be from Karatina in Nyeri County, has been working with the man.
I have to charge this white man along with 11 girls with various offenses relating to pornographic practices, and the other one would be exploitation of prostitutions, which is contrary to section 17B of the Sexual Offences Act.
Police have also revealed that the foreigner, who is a former Swiss military officer, arrived in the country in March this year and is expected to be in the country for 90 days. Though his passport indicates he should be in the country for 3 months, the man is said to have rented this house for 46 million shillings for a 2-year period. According to police, the man started his business of shooting pornographic movies in Nairobi before moving to Mombasa. During a raid in the rented house, police discovered 15 laptops which have been transferred to the CID headquarters for investigations. Police are also investigating why the man who worked for the UN is still using a car with UN number plates despite having completed his contract at the UN. Religious leaders at the coast have condemned the alleged actions of the foreigner and called on the youth to deviate from such lifestyles.
For us Christians, any form of immorality between men and women, or men alone and men and animals, it's not compatible with our faith.
Deputy President William Ruto said the government will not tolerate foreigners who come into the country to perpetrate vices such as pornography, a message echoed by the government spokesman.
Tumemwambia watu wa internal security, watu kama hawa hawafai kuwa katika taifa letu la Kenya. Wapandishwe ndege waende kwao.
The government is not going to hesitate from getting hold of you in keeping with the terms of the law, be you a Kenyan or a foreigner.
The 12 face several sexual offense charges and will appear in court again on Tuesday. Angel Katusi, KTN Sunday Night.
You're watching KTN Sunday Night. Just ahead, your weekly political analysis coming up on Checkpoint. And, of course, we've got our 3 wise men, Dr. Edward Kisiangani, Moses Kuria, and Benjamin Dolo. We'll be speaking to them shortly. Stay with us.